So today we're going to get started with this Relay Logic Lab. Now, there's a few of you that have gone through this a few years ago, so this should be a little easier for you. Hopefully just a good reminder. The little handout that you have in front of you talks about kind of what this little relay board is intended to do. And essentially, once we're wired up, we'll kind of act like a little fan unit. It's got one stage of heat with a high temp cutout, which will be a momentary button. Then there's also one stage of cooling, and there is like a freestat lockout that's a latched lockout that has a reset button to bring on, and that'll shut down the fan. And so, you know, we don't usually have something that looks like what you have in front of you, but a lot of times we will have relays and logic that is kind of behind the scenes in a panel that drives a unit that we'll work on. And so the purpose of this class is to give you experience wiring relays and switches and push buttons, using your meter to figure out what a switch does, which contacts or terminals you need to connect things to so that things work correctly once it's wired up. So a couple things that I'll point out on these boards. They can just pop off. You just squeeze that little track below them and this top part will come off. These relays have little flip-up tabs. If you want to test contacts, figure out which one's normally open, normally closed. If you don't have, there's that handout that some of you brought with you, and we have a few extra about the wiring diagram of a relay base. But you can also flip up this tab or put it back down to override it manually. Now, out in the field, we don't really want to leave that way, right? It's very easy to manual a relay, then walk away. Oh, there's my safety relay. It's overridden because I've got a bad sensor. So don't get in the habit of this, but it is a good way to troubleshoot. You can also just push down on the little red button with a screwdriver, and that'll just be like a little momentary energizing of the relay. On our switches, so as you're looking at the switches, I guess they'd be on this side. The backs of the switches, you have three different types of switches. You have one that's a two-contact, so it acts as a normally open. You flip the switch and it closes. So this is like a Form A kind of a contact. The middle is more like a Form C relay contact, in that you have a normally open, normally closed, and you can hook it either way. As you work with these, you may need to use your meter to figure out which is normally open, which is normally closed. As you look at this switch, when you're down on the front, you're going to be connected to the top on the back. Think of it as if I'm cutting through this, I rotate like so, right? So if my switch is down here, the tail end of it is up on the other side. So the common is the middle, and then you'll switch between the top and the bottom. That's for your switches. Okay. This third switch is a three-position switch, so that you can actually have a on, or like up, middle, and an off. Okay, or up, middle, down. Push buttons are different. The push buttons, the middle terminal is not the common. Okay, so when you get your meter, figure out which end is the common, and then how to wire it up appropriately for the different contacts that you need. Okay, so just a heads up. The wires you have hanging off the lights, they can be hooked up independent of polarity. They're a 24 volt AC light, so there's not one side or the other that's specific for the common side. Same goes for the coils on the relays. So as a kind of a review, when we look at the relays, you're going to have coils on the top side closest to you. So as you're looking at this, it'll be the bottom or the one closest to you. Those are the coils. You can see on the 3-pole relay, there's no screw in the middle terminal slot, right? That's because it's not part of a contact. So that will help you know that all of the coils are on that side on the top row. The common for the relays will be just below those on the same side. Then you're normally closed are up, normally open are on the bottom of the far side. Now, hopefully, if you don't remember that, just put your meter on them and check them, and you'll be able to figure that out. We're going to go through and have everybody get to the end of the first page of wiring diagrams. And once everybody has, on one side of the table or the other, is completed wiring up the first stage, so we make sure that all the power is good, then we'll flip on the power to your side of the table. Okay? So this isn't a race, but just, if you finish up, work with your neighbor or whatever, help them if they've got questions. And so we'll work to that first page, and then we'll, once everyone's got to that point, then we'll kind of let you work at your own pace. Now, a couple last things before we let you go. When you finish the lab, when we get through, there's 4 pages that one page will build on the next, and it continues to add things to the same thing that you've already done. So there's only one place, that's on page 4, that you will have to undo something you did on a step previous. And that's there's a little bubble right at the top of the page. It'll show you this needs to be put in here. So just keep that in mind. You're just adding things until that one last page. When you're finished, and I've come around and said, oh, yep, you're good, you can take it apart, we'd ask you to tighten up the terminals. They don't have to be super tight. But as you pull wires out of the relay bases, as you pull wires out of these down here, tighten them up, because we have lost a couple screws because they're just loose and kind of bouncing around a little.